Madam Chair, this is Teresa. We are ready to begin when you are.
Thank you, Teresa. The Design Review Board meeting of December 8th, 2020 is now called to order. Teresa, are we in compliance with the Freedom of Information Act and the requirements of the town of Hilton Head Island?
Yes, ma'am, we are.
Thank you, Teresa. If you would call roll, it would be appreciated.
Certainly. Miss Lippert?
Sorry, I don't have my headphones.
Oh, you're fine. Mine wasn't in his garage.
Miss Lippert?
Here.
Thank you. Mr. McAllister?
Here.
Miss Remke?
Here.
Mr. Molesky?
Here.
Mr. Carstens?
Mr. McAllister worked for.
Here. Wooden Partners.
Is he wooden part?
Miss Foss?
Here.
And Mr. Gentleman is excused. Just a reminder to the applicants, if you could all keep yourselves muted until your application comes up. We'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Teresa, I'm not seeing Mr. Molesky. I saw he signed on, but his picture's not up.
Madam Chair, sometimes only a certain number of screens will show up for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So does staff have any changes to the agenda?
I'm sorry. Hold on.
No problem.
And yes, ma'am, there are a couple of changes to the agenda as posted. Based on the number of items on today's agenda, staff would like to delete board business item 9A, review and approval of the letter to town council regarding building height limits and setback standards, and move it to the next meeting in January. Also, at the applicant's request, staff would like to move DRB 2347-2020 to the top of the agenda.
And what's the name of that project?
I'm sorry, that is Piggly Wiggly Edition.
Okay.
And it's if you're looking for the board members, if you're looking at your outline, it begins on page 5 of 9.
Thank you, Chris. Do I have a motion to approve the changes in the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the amended agenda as submitted.
Thank you, David. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Annette. If you have any changes to the agenda, state them when called upon. Please otherwise vote yes or no to approve the agenda as amended. Teresa, please call the roll.
Miss Lippert?
Yes.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Miss Remke?
Yes.
Mr. Molesky?
Yes.
Mr. Carstens?
Yes.
Miss Foss?
Yes, we have full approval of the agenda as amended. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of November 10, 2020 meeting? Has everyone had time to look them over?
I'll make a motion. I'll move to approve the meeting minutes of the November 10th, 2020 meeting as submitted.
We have a motion to approve by McAllister. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Was that Judd?
Yes.
Thank you. We have approval of the minutes. Teresa, can you call roll and vote yes or no.
Certainly. Ms. Lippert,
Yes.
Mr. McAllister,
Yes.
Ms. Remke,
Yes.
Mr. Molesky,
Yes.
Mr. Carstens,
Yes.
Ms. Foss.
Yes. We have full approval of the meeting of notes of November 10, 2020. Thank you. Teresa, we're looking for citizen comments, if there are any.
Yes, ma'am. Public comments concerning agenda items were to be submitted electronically via the town's open town hall portal. The comments received through the portal were delivered to the board for review and made part of the official meeting record. Citizens were also provided the option to sign up to give public comment during the meeting by phone. There were no requests for public comment by phone.
Thank you, Teresa. So we will now move to Piggly Wiggly Facade Improvements, DRB 002374-2020. And we will have a presentation by staff.
This project will upgrade the existing canopy on the east facade of the Piggly Wiggly supermarket with a new entrance canopy and enhanced landscaping. The entrance canopy will be a wood framed with open rafters, typical of the Caligny Plaza canopy style. All new canopy roofs will have green asphalt shingles matching the Caligny style. So the site is outlined in red on your screen. The circle indicates the approximate location of the addition to the building. You can see Caligny Circle at the bottom of your screen with Pope Avenue on the left. Lagoon is running sort of diagonally across the top of the screen. Does everybody know where we are? Well, if anybody does not know where we are, please let me know now. Not hearing any. Staff supports the proposed changes, but originally recommended denial because the scope and details were unclear. After additional explanation from the applicant post-packet publication, staff would like to change our recommendation to approval with the following conditions. 1, it is staff's understanding from the applicant that the second entrance is only an emergency exit. The applicant will provide a letter stating the second entrance is only used as an emergency exit for the file. 2, clarification is needed on the proposed connection to the building. The applicant will provide a detail better illustrating the new canopy's connection to the building, and we'll talk about that specifically as we go through the slides. And 3, it is staff's understanding from the applicant that the metal roof will remain. The applicant will revise the drawings to indicate the metal roof is to remain and change the proposed roof to metal. The drawings, 4, the drawing shall be revised to note all colors to match existing Caligny colors. And 5, the landscape plan should be revised to show a double staggered row of Hakahatchee grass. And we'll talk about that too. Looking at buildings in the neighborhood, this is across the street at It's Greek to Me. This is in front of it, the Skillets building, sort of in front of the Piggly Wiggly across the parking lot. This is the proposed facade. This is the facade of Piggly Wiggly that will be changed. So you can see the door on the right is the emergency exit that is not used by customers, and the door on the left would be the one where the new proposed canopy would be. Also note the scalloped wood trim that sits in front of the windows It is just that. It appears to sit just in front of the window so that the window kind of comes up behind that. It's critical because the drawings provided indicate that the canopy ties into that beam right there, which is not a beam. So, and we'll look at that a little bit later too. So this is the proposed landscape island and column location for the canopy. So over here you can see the columns located right there near the cursor. And the new islands, landscape islands here. Again, just a detail of that area. Staff is proposing to double up on the landscaping, double up on the row so that it won't look like individual plants marching across that island. It'll be fuller. Staff is also concerned that, understanding that there's a lot of pampas grass used throughout the landscaping at Coligny, the concern is that its location there next to a lot of pedestrian activity can tend to cut people. The blades of pampas grass can tend to cut people, and just would consider Fakahatchee grass as a better alternative. And it's also evergreen. This is the proposed canopy. And you can see an elevation of what it would look like. This is the concerned area right here where that member ties in to the rest of the building. And you can see it here too, tying into that beam that runs above the windows, which site investigation, it seems to indicate that the windows or the roof comes right down to the top of the window. Another detail of what it would look like. And that concludes staff's presentation. Madam Chairperson, are there any questions?
I have a question, Chris. Is there going to be a raised? Is there going to be a raised curb associated with the planting bed, or is it? I mean, is the current condition? The current conditions in that grade.
That's a really good question, and I would ask the applicant that you maybe pose that to the applicant. It seems the drawing seems to indicate one, but it's not labeled, and certainly staff would want to make sure that happens. So, good question.
Are there any other questions?
Do you want us to do all the questions now or when we comment?
Just to staff. Are there any other staff questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have an applicant available to present?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you give us your name?
Yes, ma'am. This is Lee Lucier, CEO of the Richardson Group, and which owns Coligny Plaza. Thank the board and the town's time today in talking about the Piggly Wiggly renovations.
You have 10 minutes to present.
Okay. A couple of questions that Chris Darnell had covered. I did want to point those out and give any additional clarification or address any questions you have. As Chris did explain, the main entry would be through the canopy section, which is the 24-foot wide new entry to the Piggly Wiggly. The connection to the roof is above the existing canopy, which is a stick-built canopy with a metal seam roof that would be removed. Being that the exterior of the building is CMU, the new beams would tie into the CMU within that new roofing structure. Above the scalloped area that Chris spoke about, the scalloped area on the windows is a decorative that was placed there somewhere in the past 60 years. The third item is we have decided to go with a metal roof instead of the asphalt shingle for the building, and because of the design and engineering of the present canopy that's on the building. So that would keep in theme with the metal roof on the other three sides of the building. So we had one look of the roof for the building. Considering all colors of the canopy and renovation and painting of the building, they would be within the Cligney colors of the tan and the Charleston green, as we'll call it. We agree with that. And the second row of landscaping does make great sense with us as far as the beds. Additionally, with that, I was questioned about the raised bed, and that is diagrammed in SD 701 in the drawings. It is a raised curb bed for those planter areas on the front facade. And it's very similar to a past project that was just completed and came through the DRB this past year, was a new entry for Coastal States Bank on Palmetto Bay Road.
Thank you. Is that it for your comments?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, we'll take questions and comments from the board. We'll starting with David McAllister.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I think this is a great project, and it's going to really enhance the storefront presence, and I think it's looking great. Really, I don't have anything to add. I'm in agreement with staff's revised comments. I think Judd brought up a great question earlier. It sounds like you guys are putting a curb in to protect the landscape. Yes, I don't have anything to add. I would support the additional detail being reviewed by a board member if everyone feels like that's necessary. But yeah, nothing else to add. I think it looks great.
Thank you, David. Judd Carstens?
Yeah, as long as we get clarification on that curb, I mean, knowing that there is, I don't know if it's a 4-inch or 6-inch vertical curb associated with those landscape islands in the parking lot, just matching those. I'm guessing that all the handicap parking in front of the building's going away. We'll just want to make sure that if that's the case, we need to update the pavement marking adjacent to this facade in regards to if it's fire lane or just a no parking area. We'll just want to make sure that those are showing up, because they're not showing up in the site plan. And I think staff's comments, if you're looking for that the grass type look, I think the Fakahatchee and the double row of muley is appropriate. I was going to think about potential for evergreen shrubs, but probably the grasses are probably a better treatment. But other than the pavement markings and the curbing, everything looks great, and I'm with staff comment.
I can answer that for Judd quickly. At the same time, we are grinding and repaving the parking lot in front of the Piggly Wiggly area. There are additional 6 spots of handicap, which is well within the LMO for usage there. So those handicap spots directly in front of the stores would be eliminated, but the 6 spots are the first 6 spots within the parking lot. Additionally, we did speak with Johaida at the fire marshal about any concerns as far as fire access, and she has no concerns for the limited traffic use there. And the parking curb will be part of the project to redo the parking lot in general. So I think those are all being done at the same time. For the full scope, we're doing the roof, hopefully the facade, and the parking all within the first 3 months before hopefully a season next year.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Judd, and thank you to the applicant for answering the questions. Annette, do you have any comments?
I do have a couple of questions. Am I understanding correctly that the proposal is to remove all existing bollards?
All existing bollards?
Yeah, they're yellow bollards all along that facade, some of which can be seen in that photo. And there's also on, if I'm standing in front of the Piggly Wiggly on the left, that is not on the drawing. So I just wanted to, it appears to be on the existing site plan and then seems to drop out for the proposed site plan. So there are 4 yellow bollards there, and I believe further down towards the western side or left side standing in front, there are more bollards. And a column that then in the proposed site plan seems to drop away.
The bollards would be taken away because they're within the floral bed sizing that's already there for the new floral bed.
And further down, I think there's 2 or 3 more past that flower bed, the new proposed flower bed. Would those remain? Those also get eliminated.
To the right, you're saying, ma'am?
To the left, it's not in the photo. If we had a photo that swings to the end of the building, I believe there's another bollard or 2 or 3.
I don't think there's any past the new area we're talking about, except for the one on the far end would still be there. So we could do a bollard, but now that we're not having parking there, I don't think it would be necessary. Because originally the bollards were there because you had the handicap parking there, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
so
ma'am.
bollards eliminated. And it's just for me to understand really what all the scope is.
Oh, absolutely.
Just let me flip through the rest of my notes, please. So is that scallop applied sort of trim piece being proposed to remain in place while because I agree, it looks to me like it's covering the top storefront mullion, and because it's being proposed that all that gray is being removed from the windows. So will that scallop piece also be removed?
The scallop piece off the window, yes, ma'am, that would be removed.
Okay, good. Okay. And this may be in one of the details that Chris is alluding to that we're still going to get. With it being I'm at the entry condition now, with it being an open rafter condition, what happens, sort of, it almost looked like in the rendering as though a stucco vertical element was being proposed, because otherwise we would see the mansard roof coming through, or I guess I'm unclear on what one sees as one heads to, yes, exactly. In that photo, it almost looks like there's a vertical stucco at the back triangle, or if it's, because I know you mentioned you're removing part of the roof to tie the beams in or something. I guess I'd like to be able to understand that back connection better.
On the back connection within the exposed area, our plan was, and I apologize for the drawing, that would be the same almost tongue and groove that's on the horizontal along the facade.
So it's a vertical face, or how does that come together?
Yes, ma'am, vertical.
Okay. Just trying to write my notes because I know it's probably going to get tossed to me to make the approval with conditions.
Take your time.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Will any lighting be revised? The soffit is currently a 2x4 lay-in type ceiling condition. Is any of that and the speakers getting modified?
The speakers?
There are surface-mounted speakers on that facade, and in the soffit condition, there are 2x4 light fixtures, and it's a 2x4 lay-in ceiling. Is any of that getting modified?
No, ma'am.
Because those speakers are mounted to that scallop portion that's getting removed.
Okay. Well, I would imagine they would go into the what we'll call the drop ceiling that's within the canopy. There's only, I believe, 2 speakers that go along what we'll call the eastern wall, the eastern stretch. There's one behind towards the end of the building and one probably about 35 feet from the entry.
In this photo, I'm seeing 3 on that scallop. So just those speakers will go into the soffit panels, I'm understanding?
Yes, ma'am.
And no lighting revisions?
No, ma'am.
So in that open rafter, there will be no light?
No, in the application process, I believe there was a light that was provided.
Yes. Did we see the cut sheet for that?
It was provided. I'm not sure as to what was provided to you.
I'm sorry, Annette. I'm not familiar with a cut sheet for the light, but I'm not saying, I'll have to check. At any rate, that would be, if we do ask for clarification of the connection to the building and a better detail, that should be part of that detail.
Perfect, okay. Okay. Let me just double check. And the rib spacing of the new metal roof, will that match the type rib spacing of the existing?
Yes, ma'am.
And I think that I'm good. The only other item that I'm not seeing labeled, but that can be in the clarifications, is sort of the pier base. Oh no, there was one more thing. It's being called out as white fascia and white trim. I believe everything at Coligny is that tan,
Yes, ma'am.
and I didn't see a color board for this one either.
Mr. Darnell and myself, we had mentioned that it would be in the tan and the Charleston or Coligny green that's prevalent in the plaza.
Okay. All right.
Annette, this is Chris. My apologies. The cut sheet for the light did not make it to the presentation, but it was in your packet, and it is a 3,000 Kelvin fixture.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, I didn't print that one myself then. All right, well, thank you for answering all those questions. Then I am good as far as, I think it will be a nice improvement, especially get the windows getting the applique removed and things like that. And I think also the planting at the entrance will be really nice. And thank you for clarifying all those elements. I'm sure they will be part of the conditional approval, assuming the rest of the board feels similarly.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Annette, for your solid review of the project. Really helpful discussion points. John Molesky, do you have questions or comments?
Of course. Yeah, again, great project. Love Coligny, so I'm excited to see this getting cleaned up here. Let's see. No particular order here. Along the body of the front elevation there seems to be some pretty long expanses of that horizontal lap siding. I don't know if anybody else felt that same way, if maybe some of that could be broken up with some couple vertical elements every now and then, maybe every 2 or 3 windows or something like that, just to break it up so it isn't just this big long run of horizontal boards. Was one comment. Let's see. To jump over to the new little entry there, which is great because I know it's kind of a little hodgepodge there when people are going from the parking lot into the building and there's dropping off and all that kind of stuff. So all that's great there. I just wonder if, and this is more or less for the landscape guys to share their thoughts, is that muley grass and stuff in there, is that necessarily going to be enough to deter people from cutting through there? Because I think, from a safety point of view, you want to try to direct people to kind of go from the parking lot into the main door and not necessarily stepping over the muley grass. And even though you're not going to have, policeman there keeping that from happening, I don't know if a more substantial plant would make sense, especially maybe like in the springtime if that muley grass gets cut back or something. Again, just for what that is worth, to put that out there. The pig's head on top of the gable there, I got nothing against pigs or whatever, but I don't know if that's something that we're reviewing, if that's a sign review thing. Is that kind of in keeping with, the Hilton head to have a big pig's head on there? I know it's called Piggly Wiggly, but just wanted to put that out there.
Mr. Molesky, this is Chris Darnell.
Yes, Chris.
That logo would have to receive a sign permit, a separate sign permit.
Okay, so we're not necessarily reviewing that then, and that's not getting snuck by or necessarily approved because it's on there?
That is correct. Yes, sir.
Okay. Have a couple comments on the columns and stuff there. I guess the base of the columns, again, maybe this is just a personal opinion, but I'd like to see that be something maybe a little more substantial than necessarily just wrapped in hardy. I don't know if that's just going to be wood framed out of pressure treated material and then they're just going to wrap it in hardy. But again, maybe if that was tabby or something that just felt like a more again substantial piece of column there. And then those 4x4 columns, they seem kind of skimpy. I know we have a dimension there of 10.4 as far as the height goes, and again, maybe others have an opinion here, but I would like to see those maybe a little more beefy, maybe a 6x6 instead of a 4x4. I know in the beginning you showed a picture of skillets, and I think skillets has something similar, but theirs seemed to be more of a stain grade material, and it seemed to have a little more girth to it. Perhaps, yeah, that was the photo I was alluding to there. So I just wanted to put that out, since you guys are in the process of doing it. And I think, the columns in that gable entry look great, but just make it, have the proportions maybe feel a little more substantial would be a suggestion there. Shopping cart storage. When you show a picture of the existing entry to Piggly Wiggly, we see all those shopping carts just, there. I understand it's a grocery store and grocery stores need shopping carts, but that looks pretty junky. And if the whole point is trying to fix things up a little bit, is there any, what thought has been put into creating, a nice aesthetically pleasing cart storage, place, whether it be in the parking lot or inside the store, outside the store? Has any thought been given to that? I guess that's a question for Lee.
Did you want me?
Yeah, I have more, but I'm curious here before I rattle on any more, if you guys have any input on that.
I don't know which part you'd like me to speak to, but we'll go directly with the carts.
Sure.
The carts will be still stored outside. There's just no room in the store. It's the oldest and original grocery store on the island. So to have 400, 500 square feet of cart storage inside the store is just not feasible. Within the new design, we would imagine we get the carts in an organized fashion, as John had just alluded to. And that would be between the new planter and the actual parking, the sidewalk. And that's why it was designed in those 35-foot runs that they could be behind the plants, off the sidewalk, and in organized fashion, not just in some array at the front of the store.
Is there going to be any type of cage or just something that defines, hey, this is the area for the carts and this is the area for pedestrians to pass? Instead of just hoping that it all works out, because obviously when, hoping it works out, and we could see a picture of what the reality is. How much space is there anyway there?
Between the between the new planter and the sidewalk, I believe it was 30 inches, which is the size of the carts.
Yeah, so it's
So you
either
still
going to
have
be a
the-
sidewalk or a cart storage then, huh?
Sir?
So it looks like there's not enough room for both. It's either going to be a walkway for people or it's going to be cart storage, huh?
No, it has both. So if you look at the image SD 103, so where you have the bed and then you have the we'll call it the concrete area between the existing sidewalk and the new bed, that would be the area for the carts.
All right, and I know in some other stores, they'll have a little metal, I don't know what you call it, but just like protector little bumpers or something like that for people to put the carts in there. I mean, are you guys going to do anything like that to keep them contained?
I don't think we would have a metal cage in front of the store. I don't think that would be aesthetically pleasing, no.
Well, obviously not a metal cage, but something, that looks better than people just dumping them there and then they roll into the parking lot. Again,
I'm not sure that would be privy as part of this, what the parking lot's going to have.
And then we talked a little bit about lighting. Is there any uplighting that proposed for these, 2 palm trees or something there, or for the columns, or?
Not at this time, sir. We don't have any uplighting presently in the plaza, and we want to keep with the design and the current design of the plaza. As we said before, the tan and the green, we don't have actual tabby footers on the plaza, but I would think adding uplighting wouldn't be fitting with the decor and the look of the rest of the plaza at this time.
Okay. Well, it'd be my vote. I think that this would be a good opportunity, since you're spending some money on some things here, to fix up some lighting in here, just so people that are coming here, especially in the evenings right now when it gets dark early, whether it be the palm trees, whether it be the columns, whether it be some soffit lighting or something in there. Again, it doesn't have to be a landing strip, but I think that wouldn't be such a bad idea to add some lights at this time would be my suggestion as far as that goes. I think that's all that I'm seeing for now. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, John. All good points.
May I just ask John to clarify one of his statements?
Sure.
Yes, you may.
You had, and I missed what you said. You said, could the long horizontal siding be broken up by?
Yeah, if Chris could be so kind, or who's ever working the computer there, Teresa, to show like a picture of that front elevation. And underneath the windows, I didn't necessarily pick up any dimensions. And this would be a proposed picture, I'm sorry, I'm alluding to. It looks like they have, I'm going to assume it's like a 5/16 inch, hardy. So on the top picture there, that's color. You can see to the left of the sliding doors, it goes from the doors all the way to the end of the building, just continuous run of that horizontal lap siding. And you could see above it, we could see the fixed glass, and I don't know how wide that is. Maybe each section might be 5 feet. So I would just say, hypothetically, every 2 or 3 window panels, maybe in a line with the vertical component of the windows, to drop in some type of 6-inch wide vertical element, just to break that up a little bit, so it doesn't feel so much like a trailer, and adds a little bit of visual interest. That's what I was suggesting, if that helps clarify at all.
Are you
Yes,
good?
thank you.
All right, we'll move on to comments and questions from Ms. Remke. Debbie?
I think that all the questions I had have been answered by previous questions. I think this is going to be a good improvement for the store. I think it's going to have a much better, much more upscale feel, and I think this is going to be a good project. So my questions have been answered. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. A lot of good points have been brought up. I'm very grateful to the applicant for answering staff's questions prior to this meeting, and it sounds like you covered just about everything. There's a reminder that we're going to, at final, have to see all the details on the scallop being removed, the lighting, the speaker faces and where they're going to be put. I think I don't have any other issues other than just, and how the roof is attached. Piggly Wiggly is a very valuable group to our Hilton Head community, and I'm happy to see that this is being done for them. Annette, you have a question?
Yes, because you were mentioning at final, this is submitted as an alteration, so this is the only time we get to see it.
Chris, is that true? So
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. That is true.
Is staff approval, and we can suggest board members be present?
Yeah, yes, you can, if that's what you all would like to do, certainly.
Okay, take note to whoever's going to make a motion. We can go through a second round of questions. I'll start with David McAllister. You have any more?
I don't really have any other questions or anything else to add, but I do think that whenever the motion's made, we should probably have a board member review the supplemental details that's suggested in staff's revised comments.
Thank you.
Can I ask that in the second round, people comment on cart storage and lighting, please?
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I see the cut sheet and the submittal package that I had. I mean, it's just a little small can light. I don't think I have any issue with the lighting. As far as the cart storage, I mean, it kind of is what it is. I don't know that, I'm not sure that I can think of a better solution. I don't know. I don't have a strong opinion about the carts. Unfortunately, it's an older building, so they can't store them inside, which is typical for a lot of grocery stores. So don't have a strong opinion there.
Thank you. Mr. Carstens, Judd?
I know that there's lights in the parking aisles. So beyond the fixture that's supposed to be recessed underneath the new canopy, I'm not necessarily thinking that uplights in these small beds will, I'm not sure if we're going to get away with what we need in installing those. I think the lights that they have proposed underneath the canopy are good. To David's point, as far as most of the pedestrian traffic, at least, by plan and by surface, the ends of the aisles are open. So there's still a direct access to sidewalk, not having to go through the planting beds. Doubling up on the plant material will kind of concentrate material in those beds, and that should be a deterrent even if they're cut back. And then when it comes to shopping carts, if I understood Lee, in that if the carts can be put on the backside of these proposed planting areas and keeping the sidewalk across the facade of the building free and clear, really, if there's some simple kind of metal that in essence keeps those carts in there, that also will act as a deterrent for people cutting through the landscape bed, is if the shopping carts are lined up across the backside of that planting area. So I think that kind of solves two issues there. And then, just keeping the walkway free and clear across the face of the building would probably be a better option. So, but no, in the end, no additional lighting from what I see beyond what's proposed, and the cart storage in some fashion across the backside of the proposed landscape islands will be beneficial. So.
Thank you. Annette?
I hear a lot of what John had, what your comments were, John, and I think some of them were really good. When I was out there and debated about the posts, which I agree in a way look too small, but the entire plaza has that dimension. The way it's detailed in the rest of the plaza is exactly how it's been detailed, and I feel like the effort was made by doubling them up to help create a little more substantial, where the site that we looked at, where it's 6 by 6 posts, it takes away that detail of the 1 by, I don't know what it is, 1 by 6 applied to the 4 by 4. So in order for it to be in keeping with the rest of the plaza, I'm a proponent of keeping the dimensions and keeping the doubling up. Perhaps the base can get raised a little bit. I'm also okay with the horizontal siding, only because it is the rest of it, and it is there's a rather simple detailing around the plaza. So John, I'll be curious to hear what you kind of have to say to that on the second go round. I think your comment about breaking up the long horizontal is a good one, because otherwise with material movement, seasonal movement, you just end up seeing a lot of gaps. So I think whether it's, like you said, maybe every 3 window mullions, you bring in a horizontal trim, just to account for material movement, I think it will end up holding up over time a lot better, and yet not, make it feel like we're trying to bring down all the mullions. So I think that was a really good comment. And I do agree also with Judd, what you just said about a simple rail to encourage where the carts actually end up landing. I know we will never control them all, but some sort of simple rail, and it will solve many issues. All I have in the second round. Thank you.
All right, John.
Okay, well, yeah, I definitely respect both of your opinions there. Judd, great solution there. I think by doing the carts like you just pointed out, will keep them organized and also deter people from cutting through there. So that's a great suggestion. And as far as the column base goes, again, I'm fine either way. I just wanted to put that out there. If there was any consideration to it being something more substantial. Same thing, again, you guys have the eye for the columns. So again, I'll be happy to be on board if you're comfortable with the proportions there. The only thing that I would still kind of like to see is some type of uplighting in there, whether it be at the column bases or perhaps at the base of those palm trees. I think that would just make it feel a little more upscale. Again, it doesn't have to be a landing strip, but just something just to accentuate those areas. I think would make it look sharper. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Debbie?
I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
All right. The shopping cart, Judd, could you verify where you envision the carts? Are they up against the wall underneath the windows of the store, or are they out in the concrete beside the beds, the way you were envisioning it?
I was envisioning that, you know, we're pushing out these landscape areas. So that space that we're gaining, that new concrete area, that's where the carts would reside. So they'd be across the back of this new landscape. And, you know, I could see as simple as something as a 2-inch pipe turned and just run and then turn back down is enough to kind of just even give that, you know, that space for the carts to be, because inevitably there's going to be at least a few carts in this corral at any one particular point. And it'll be pretty clear where the pedestrians are. But that was the hope, was that the carts would be on the backside of the landscape. And, you know, because, they're already kind of a presence across the front of the building, so we're not really hiding them. And if they can do double duty and they can still be obviously accessible for everybody, that's what I'm gunning for.
Thank you for the clarification. That might be another thing for everyone to add to. I like the idea that the carts are still lined up against the wall myself, only because that gives us that free space and lets the landscaping stand out a little bit and doesn't draw attention to the carts. And I think that people are coming and going to this canopy, they're probably going to want to walk behind the landscaping and not between the carts and the wall. That's my opinion right now. I think if anyone can add to that, that would be great. The siding, the vertical siding underneath the windows doesn't bother me that much either, but Annette, you brought up a great point about just weathering and the conditions of something at that length might have to be, might need some more containment. So that might be a good idea to see a proposal to the staff and a couple board members on what they could do there. I just don't want it to take away from the entrance, because the entrance is going to make this building so much better and more functional this way. What else did I have? I think that's it. I do worry about putting post or metal bracketing around the carts, just because people get lazy when they're there and they have to just throw them around, and then they're going to throw them into the parking and the entrance and such. And when they're, right now, Piggly Wiggly does a pretty good job of just containing those carts in a row by the siding. And John, I think, if we were in a different shopping center, uplighting might make sense, but this is Coligny, and I don't think it really belongs here, in my opinion. So that's my 2 cents. Does anyone have anything further to add? I can't see everyone's face, so if you just want to speak up, go ahead. No?
I think for me, it's just that I'm not sure we have a consensus, so making the motion for approval with conditions, I'm feeling there are a couple of points that I just don't know where we stand as the board, so.
We're looking at, you think the cart storage and the lighting?
Yeah, those to me are the most where we seem to be slightly divergent as a group.
Can we go around one more time and ask everyone how they feel about the cart storage and the lighting? David.
As far as uplights, I mean, to John's point, I think it would be nice, but also agree that, you know, there's not a whole lot of uplighting in the shopping center. I don't know that it necessarily belongs, although it's a good idea and it's nice. I don't think it's necessary here. So I'm fine with lighting as submitted. As far as shopping carts, I, again, really don't have a strong opinion. If they're going to put them up in front of the building, then that's what they're going to do. I do think it's a good idea to have some sort of rail that contains it, but where it gets contained, it gets into the operations of the business, and I don't know that we should tell them how they should operate. So it's my 2 cents.
Thank you, David. Judd, how do you feel about the lighting and the rail?
I personally, with Caligny, there's limited uplighting. I think it's only within some of the larger oaks that are in there, and mostly, I don't think it's necessary. I mean, if the client or if the owner would like to put them in, obviously we're gonna need to see cut sheets and all of that, but I don't think it's necessary. And then the carts, another reason I propose those to be on the backside of the landscape and having some kind of containment is that it allows then the covered sidewalk to be continuous across, I know there's a shop on the corner of this structure, and then it's a continuous covered walkway for pedestrians. If I'd rather see, the pedestrians be able to get to shelter, if we're going to be expanding, this zone out, keeping that pedestrian zone contiguous. That was one of the reasons why I was hoping to have the carts pushed out. But that's my thoughts.
Thank you, Judd. Annette, do you want to add, or are you just listening?
I'm hearing the same sort of difference. I don't feel particularly strong about the cart storage. While the idea of the rail initially sounded good, I can also see that store management will want to have the carts under cover, so even if rail goes there, they may not end up using it. Knowing the history that they seem to take good care of, sure, was it a perfectly straight line? No, but show me one, even with rails, there's always a few oddballs here and there. I agree that lighting as submitted would be fine, and I'm ever more leaning towards not, if you will, regulating the carts in any way, shape, or form, and then time will kind of tell whether they end up being against the facade to get coverage or behind the plantings.
Thank you, Annette. John, can you add?
I don't know. I didn't mean to start a big debate here, or whatever. They're just shopping carts. It's just lights. If I was a developer and if I was in charge, I guess you all know what I would do. I'm happy to vote to approve this either way. So I'm not going to be a stickler one way or another on this. So just call me Switzerland on this. Thanks.
Thanks, John. Debbie, can you speak to the lights and the cart storage?
Madam Chair, Debbie seems to be having connection issues, so
Okay.
But we do still have a quorum.
All right. So I'm seeing pretty much no Annette on the uplighting. We're okay with not adding that. The carts, there's no opinion from one. Another one thinks it's better to have the continuous covered walkway. John wants to dictate and have his own market and do his own thing. And I'm going to vote for not having the cart storage at all, no railing. And I don't want the lights there either. So I think we're pretty good, even without Debbie's input. Sorry, she's not there right now. So can I call for a motion?
I will make a motion.
Forever grateful for them.
So I will make a motion for approval with conditions for DRB 002774-2020 with the approval conditions being all of staff recommendations, a clarification on the curb height, updating of pavement markings, bollards will be eliminated. A clarification of the connection detail of the new entry roof to the existing building, which will include the tongue and groove material at that location. Speakers to go into the soffit. The new standing seam metal roof to match the existing rib spacing. A vertical trim piece of sorts to break up the long run of horizontal siding, something like every 3 window bays or so, just to take up thermal movement. Just a reiteration that signage will need its own signage submittal and approval, and that those elements shall be reviewed by staff and 1 board member. That concludes my motion.
Does anyone have an amendment to her motion? If not, can anyone second her motion?
I'll second.
Thank you, David. We have a second by David McAllister. Teresa, will you call roll?
Certainly. Ms. Lippert,
Yes.
Mr. McAllister,
Yes.
Mr. Molesky,
Yes.
Mr. Carstens,
Yes.
Ms. Remke. I don't see Ms. Remke on the line. Ms. Foss.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously, 5-0.
Thank you. We'll move on to unfinished business. T. Dalton Clothing, DRB 00045222020. We'll ask for a staff presentation from Chris.
Thank you, Ms. Chairman. This project is for exterior changes to the storefront of Unit 112A at Shelter Cove Center, which reflects the branding and style of the new store. These changes include paint the columns, fascia, and beams of the entry portico, Sherwin-Williams 6195 Rock Garden Green. It's good to note that this is the same dark green used at the jewelry and coastal stores. The ceiling panels will remain the lighter green color. 2, add mahogany stained Bahama shutters over all the doors and windows. The shutters will align with the corresponding doors and windows below in an authentic way. And 3, replace the lights with solid brass in a bronze finish bulkhead lights as manufactured by Ship Lights Inc. They have an E26 base, 900 lumen, 75 watt equivalent, and are 27,000 Kelvin. This project has received Shelter Cove approval. The signage will be submitted under separate cover. The entire parcel is outlined in your screen. At the top of the screen, you can see Shelter Cove Park. Running sort of diagonally mid-screen, you'll see William Hilton Parkway. And the circle in the middle of the parcel is the approximate location of the storefront. If anybody does not know where we are, would you please speak up or make some kind of motion? Seeing none. This is the storefront there in the center. It's just to the left of the tower element. There's a close-up of it. This is what the storefront would look like with the proposed changes. So you can see the shutters above, the new color on the columns, and again, the light fixture there. So let's go back. Existing, proposed. This is a picture around Shelter Cove Town Center. Again, you can see that green trim, and that's the same color that's being used, proposed. And there to get is again on the jewelry store. Again, that green color. This is the light fixture that has been proposed in a bronze finish. And the Bahama shutters. Staff recommends approval, but it should be noted for the record that the applicant has stained the bench outside this store, which is typical to Shelter Cove, that now does not match the others. Staff has no recommendation for reversing this treatment of the bench. That concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you. Do we have an applicant available? I'm sorry, I should ask first, are there questions from the board to Chris, staff? All right, then I see that we have Tom Parker available. If you would like to make comments to Chris's comments and add to that, you've got 10 minutes.
I'm not sure I can get all my comments in 10 minutes.
I dare you.
I think Chris did a good job. We're just changing the look and feel of the store to reflect the nature of the new product they're going to be selling, which is antique sort of restoration-looking clothing and odds and ends. A lot of nostalgic sort of polo elements in there. It's a pretty cool store.
Thank you. Do we have questions from, well, I'll go through the order and you can ask questions to our applicant. I'll start with David McAllister.
Yeah, I think it's looking great. Appreciate all the hard work with working with staff throughout this process. Looks like you tightened it up a lot. Only question I had was just wanted to verify that the light fixtures either had frosted glass or had a concealed light source. Just wanted to make sure that that was the case.
I'll make a note that it's frosted.
Okay. That's all my comments. I think it looks great.
Thank you, David. Judd?
No additional comments at this time. Thanks.
Thank you. Annette?
No additional comments from me. Thank you.
You? John?
No comments.
Thank you. And Ms. Rimke, Debbie, you're back.
Yes, sorry, I ran out of battery. No, I have no additional comments. I think this is a good upgrade on the storefront.
I agree with everyone's comments. David, thank you for bringing up the frosted glass issue. I wish the benches wouldn't have gotten stained, but I'll just lay off on that since no one else brought it up. Are there any additional, do we need to go around again for comments, or is everyone good? All right, can someone make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, David.
I'll move to approve the T. Dalton Clothing DRB 000452-2020 with the following condition that the proposed light fixtures have a frosted glass.
And do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion by David McAllister and a second by Annette Lippert. Annette, or Teresa, can you call roll?
Certainly. Ms. Lippert?
Yes.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Ms. Remke?
Yes.
Mr. Molesky?
Yes.
Mr. Carstens?
Yes.
Ms. Foss?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously, 6-0.
Thank you. Moving on to new business. Thank you. Moving on to new business, Ella's re-roof DRB 002197-2020. Do we have a presentation? Staff.
Yes, Ms. Chairman, thank you. This application is to re-roof the Ellis building at the Harbor Master Ship Store in Shelter Cove Harbor. The DRB has historically approved the replacement of the terracotta colored concrete roof tile with standing seam metal roofs in a similar color throughout Shelter Cove. The site is outlined in red again on your screen. You can see the harbor to the right of the site, and it's at the end of Shelter Cove Lane, which you can see coming in from the left of the slide. If anybody does not know where they are, please make a motion or let me know now. Not hearing or seeing any. This is the roof looking down that's going to be replaced. The tile, that's concrete tile roof. This is the proposed product that will be used. It has been used elsewhere in Shelter Cove. Again, you can see it here and then in the background. Staff recommends approval as submitted. That concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Chris. Do we have an applicant available? If you could state your name.
This is Dorian Hernandez with Luna Roofing. How are you?
Good, thank you. You have 10 minutes to comment on staff's presentation.
Well, we're basically just making ourselves available for any questions you guys might have on the project. This is what we see on the screen is a terracotta 24 gauge steel, and that would be the material that will be used on this restaurant as per the specs in our quote. And it's matching entirely and 100% with the rest of the condos building, adjacent next to this restaurant in the area.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have comments from the board, starting with David McAllister?
Sure. As Chris noted, since this has been approved in Shelter Cove before, and I know Shelter Cove has sort of its own unique character, I'm fine with what's submitted.
Thank you, David. Judd?
No comments beyond just obviously it's a little different roof shape than some of the other ones, and I trust that the treatment of the roof ridges and the returns will be appropriate if they're not up against flashing on the building. So.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Judd. Annette?
Based on the precedence of it existing, I will certainly be voting to approve it, but I do feel to me that is a very bright orange that does not do a good replacement of a clay tile that weathers to a variation with more grays in it. So I think it's a very bright substitution for a clay tile, but again, based on the precedence, I will vote to approve.
Thank you, Annette. John?
I have no comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Debbie?
I vote to approve.
Thank you. Annette, you have stated what I've stated before you started. I live across the creek from there, and it's so annoying to see those bright roofs, but the precedent was set before our time, so I have no other comments either. Can I get a motion from someone for this project?
I'll make a motion. I'll move to approve Ella's re-roof DRB 002197-2020. Approval as submitted.
Thank you. We have a motion from David McAllister. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Second from Judd Carstens. Teresa, can you call roll?
Yes, Madam Chair. Ms. Lippert,
Yes.
Mr. McAllister,
Yes.
Ms. Remke,
Yes.
Mr. Molesky,
Yes.
Mr. Carstens,
Yes.
Ms. Foss.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously, 6-0.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next new business, Graco Edition DRB 002371-2020. We'll get a presentation from staff.
Thank you, Ms. Chairman. This project is for the addition of a lumber rack on the side of the Graco building on Palmetto Bay Road. This rack is a pre-engineered structure that will go on top of the existing paved parking lot and will have a chain link fence to match the metal structure. Also, a landscaping elevation is provided to show supplemental landscaping in the road buffer. The parcel is outlined in red. You can see the circle, which highlights the area where the rack will be located. It's also important to remember that there is also the addition, you're approving the addition of a double door. I'm sorry, you can't see anything, can you?
No, we're just going to interrupt. There you go.
Okay. My apologies. I was looking at one screen and not your screen. I've got two screens. Okay, the site is outlined in red. The area within the circle is where the rack will be located. It's important to note that they're also adding a double door, replacing a single door with a double door on the front side of the building. Palmetto Bay is running diagonally across your screen on the left. Arrow Road is pretty much front in the middle there, right adjacent to the site, running diagonally perpendicular to Palmetto Bay. And you can see, I'm sorry, that's Archer Road. Arrow Road is running parallel on the right side of your screen to Palmetto Bay. I think it's important to note here, hold on just a minute. It's important to note here, I believe it's Atlantic Bank, or there's a bank in the upper right-hand or left-hand corner. The post office is behind it, where my cursor is. There is self-storage directly behind the Graco building. It is a metal building. You can see Redfish here, sort of at the bottom middle of the screen, and then adjacent to that, I would highlight or make sure you understand is the smokehouse location. So you've recently looked at that building and have approved those elevations on that building, which did include metal. So we're going to look at the site. We're just going to kind of walk around the site. So we're coming from the back, looking towards Palmetto Bay Road. So the structure would go where these cars are currently. Coming out onto Archer Road, looking back. So there's good, as long as the buffer and this vegetation is maintained, the structure would be well screened, because it would be behind this vegetation, again, where those cars are parked. And we're moving on down Archer towards Palmetto Bay. This is the building, that part of the, I believe it's a split face concrete block building. The structure would be to the left in this area. I'm sorry, to the right. the other left. And that's looking back down Archer, Palmetto Bay towards Arrow. Palmetto Bay is behind us. Again, Archer is on your right. The structure is right, the proposed structure is right here with the existing structure here. A floor plan of the renovations. Here's where that double door will be added to the front. Palmetto Bay Road is off the screen to the bottom. And elevations of the side elevation of the building is at the top with that structure you can see, and an elevation of the back from the back where you can see the shape of the structure here. This is the landscape plan. And the proposed landscape list. I'm sorry, excuse me. This is a staff is concerned that this is a metal-sided building on what could be argued the primary thoroughfare on the island, and as such, staff recommends denial based on the cited sections of the design guide in the comment sheet. This concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Chris. Does the board have any questions for Chris? Okay, is the
Could you just start by, sorry, the color board or the submission for the color board on this Graco project was, I believe it was like a piece of dark bronze metal. Where am I envisioning this? Does this have to do with the storefront, with the roof? Do you know that, or is that for the applicant?
That color metal would be the color of the building. So it would be the color of this siding, this metal siding right here.
Chris, in that elevation, what is that sort of angled shape there?
This?
Yes.
It's a pre-manufactured metal structure, and that's just a solid metal skin.
Thank you. Anyone else have questions for Chris? All right, is the applicant available? And if so, please tell us your name. Mr.
Tim,
Pope?
you're on mute. Well, no, we can't hear you.
Now he's definitely muted.
There you go.
There we.
No.
Tim, you might try taking your headphones out.
No, you guys can't hear me? Hold on.
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Okay.
If you'll state your name and then you have 10 minutes to make a presentation, should you need it.
Sure. It's Tim Probst from Parker Design Group Architects. The only thing I really need to add is, we're not, in this structure, we're going right in the park lot, so we're not going to remove any vegetation. We're just going to add some. So we're not getting that buffer at all. The storefront is just going to be the same color as what's there. It's basically, that's not changing. That whole front of the building is storefront. So we're basically taking out a panel and putting another door in there. To answer your question on that. That's it.
Thank you.
Yep.
We will start taking questions from the board. We'll start with David McAllister.
All right. So I did have a couple questions, and one of them started to get answered before you came on, Tim. I admittedly had a hard time kind of understanding what this structure looks like. What's the material of it? Is it like corrugated metal, or is it mesh, or is it open?
It's a 5E. It's a metal panel, basically. It's basically what you see, typical metal panel.
Okay. And
it's on 3 sides, basically. So basically what it is, it's a 3-sided structure. The part that's facing the building is open, and they're going to store, there's racks in there they can store lumber. Very similar to what SB has down the road, except theirs is not. This one's covered from the backside.
So the exterior is essentially the 5V material, and the support, the horizontal and vertical support brackets are on the inside.
That's right.
Reading? Okay.
So there's a wall on the backside there, and there's a wall on the other 2 sides, the front and the back.
Okay.
And then inward, there's going to be that's open. It's racks.
And
it's basically racks that come out that store lumber. Yeah, right there.
Okay. Yeah. And somebody, I think Ms. Lippert asked a question about the color sample. So is that correct, that the whole structure is to be painted?
The whole structure is that color, yeah. It's not a dark bronze, it's more like a medium bronze.
Okay. Well, I think I read on one of the plans that the chain link fence was to be.
It would match that structure.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to comment. I think it would be a little odd to have green against that. I mean, staff makes good points about, it being a thoroughfare and a metal structure. You do have a great buffer. It's not going to be super visible, but, we aren't really allowed to rely exclusively on landscape to hide something. So I do think the structure needs to stand on its own. My preference would be to see this a little bit dressed up, for lack of a better word. I don't know what you could do. I mean, I know it's a metal structure, but maybe staff's recommendation on the roof form might help it. But I'm a little reluctant to approve as it is, just based on those things. I mean, it's almost a 25-foot tall structure, but I'd like to hear what other folks' thoughts are as well.
Thank you, David. We'll move on to Judd.
I think the color of the structure certainly helps. Granted, it's not matching the rest of the architecture. When I looked at the photos submitted, I thought that the buffer looked very nice. And then I looked on Street View, and it shows a January view, and it's a lot different. There's a number of sweet gums. So I think that the buffering proposed is going to have to get beefed up, even if it is just some evergreens that help to soften the lower levels. I understand landscape is not the old solution, but as a newbie on this board, I look to at least that as a component of a solution. So I think the combination of beefing up some of the evergreen within that mid to lower level, along with the understory trees provided, will help. Like I said, I think the color of it will help to kind of denude it some. I'm not completely sure about the metal treatment itself. I'll look to rely on some of the folks with the better architectural backgrounds when it comes to the composition. But I do appreciate the fact that it is not a dark color. But again, I think that there's going to need to be, no matter what, I think there's going to need to be some additional plant material to soften this. And I'll look forward to hearing some of the other folks' comments on the architecture.
Thank you, Judd. Move on to Annette. You're on mute, Annette.
Sorry.
Okay.
So for me, my struggle is that I feel like for the main structure, I essentially have no details. I don't know what the siding looks like. I don't know what the roof looks like. And it's labeled as new metal structure by others. So I mean, I guess fundamentally, I feel like I don't have enough information to be able to approve the project. That aside, based on what I am seeing, because I guess if this is a sort of prefab lumber storage, it probably only has so many criteria. My struggle is with the top of it relative to the mansard roof. I think it's a little too tall relative to the existing structure, which just one example of if that pitch were not towards the courtyard, which frankly, functionally, I wouldn't understand why I would want to pitch the water into my courtyard rather than the planting behind me. That could be one way to potentially address that if that pitch were flipped. I know people are saying they like the medium bronze. I think it's dark relative to the existing building. And I'm not sure I'm very keen on a chain link fence there. That all said, I think I want to clarify scope, because currently on the front facade, there are 2 single doors. So I guess I'm hearing that one of the single doors will be replaced by glazing, and then the other single door becomes a double door. Is that correct?
Yeah, can I speak on a couple points? First off, yeah, that is correct. That's all storefront there. We're replacing the one single door. Basically what's happening here is this is becoming part of the main store, where this was once the window section of Graco. So with that's what the upfit is. And so they're replacing that single door with a double door, because this is going to be their grill section and need that width to get grills in and out. And then the other single door will just be replaced by glass.
Okay, and then there's a new overhead door into the courtyard, and then the existing deck is being demoed.
The existing deck is not. It's not where it's just going to be pull-up trucks to it. There's no deck underneath that. It's just going to be a loading dock. So
I know, but there's a deck in that corner. Sorry,
there's a deck. Yeah, the deck is to the right of it.
And is that getting demoed? On the floor plan, it looks like that's gone.
No, it's not being demoed. That's staying.
Okay, so C.0, I guess, would need to get updated to show that remaining.
Yeah, if you go, can you go back to the floor plan for the building? Yeah, right there. The deck is the top left corner. And that's staying. So there's a door out there, and the new door is going to the right.
Chris, could you go to C.0?
I'm sorry, it didn't make it to the presentation. If you'll continue, I'll see if I can pull it up.
But actually, it's visible on S.1 right here.
Yeah.
In the sort of inside corner, there's an existing deck which drops out on the new drawings and has a line suggesting a new railing there. So that's the deck that I'm asking about, whether that's remaining or demoed. Okay, so then we would just need that updated on C.0. And
can I make one comment too on the metal structure? Chris, I submitted a actual plan from the manufacturer on that. Do you have that? That has the details of the structure. Is it separate?
I will see if I can pull that up from
That's
the
basically what I
application.
placed on my drawings. And I did talk to the manufacturer, and the point about the roof facing the wrong way, they do that, what he told me, so it protects the lumber, but he is able to switch the pitch, so it would go the other way on that structure. They could switch the pitch so it would be open. They can't do that.
Okay. I think that would help the feel of the height and would help make it look like that what it is, which have a pitched roof.
I agree with that, and also bring the plate down on that end about 2 feet. Because now it's basically what they care about is the front of it, having the clearance. So they would bring that down probably about 2 feet is what he told me if he did that. So they are able to pitch it the other way.
Okay. And it's a coil-up, roll-up door?
Yeah, it would match what's on the other side of the building. I don't know if you have that picture of that. There's one. It's the same thing on the back side of the building. There's no deck underneath that. It's basically trucks that pull right up to it. So it's about 4 feet off the ground.
And the other question I had, there appears to be on-site drainage going from that paved area into that landscape buffer, which would, there's a break in the curve right about the center of where that lumber structure is being proposed. Would the whole paving still drain through the middle of that?
Yeah, I'd have to look at it. Can you pull that up? Chris, you there?
I'm sorry, I was trying to find your details for the building. What do you need?
Can you go to the site plan?
Yes, hold on. That's it. Is this what you're looking for?
Yeah, what was the question? I'm sorry.
I think you can almost even see it on this. It's sort of at the end of the third bay.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the whole paving area seems to drain through.
Okay. There's no floor or anything on this. It just goes right down to the columns go right down the ground. It's all open. So there'll be a footer that they'll have to knock out, but there's no floor on this thing. It's all freestanding.
So, I mean, for me, basically, I just don't have enough information to be able to approve at this time. Or recommend denial, either way, just because I have no information on that main structure, just because. That's all I have.
Thank you, Annette. Let's go on to John.
You said John, not Judd, right? Judd already spoke?
John, that's right.
All right. My comment would go back to, yeah, the trees are there, but let's say, a hurricane comes by and we lose all those trees but they don't fall on the structure, they fall somewhere else, and now we're just left with this exposed structure. And granted, it's not the main thoroughfare necessarily, but it would just look like a boat-out storage. I would say on Pope Avenue, that really nice looking, I don't know if it's still like that bike rental place, whatever that was there, how you had that real nice horizontal boards there that might be, I don't know, 1x8s that have a little gap in between it. I would think that look there applied to that metal structure, would be a lot more appealing, especially in the event that we lost that buffer. And even if we do add additional trees, it seemed like everybody gave you guys a hard time for doing the metal at the smokehouse, which I thought it would look appropriate there, and that was a little bit of a struggle. And this being so tall and so long on that street there, I would have a hard time with them just doing that metal on the side there. And same thing that the chain link fence. Just my short time here on the board, I haven't had the experience of people necessarily embracing the chain link fence. I understand there's a reason for everything, but just the fact that this is kind of on a main street and everything else, I think it would be a good opportunity to have them use a nicer product, whether it be the same type of operable fence, but again, maybe repeat that 1x6, 1x8, boards on it with some kind of gap in between it, just to make it feel a little bit more than, a chain link fence, regardless of the color. Those are my only comments. And Tim, I'll ask, I don't know if you guys or Graco had entertained any other backup options, knowing that the board might be averse to the metal, or?
Yeah, I mean, I asked the actual, I've been talking to the manufacturer to see, what we can do, just what flexibility we have with the structure. We got in kind of late to the game. They just gave us this, and we had to place it on there. So there are some options. We are able to clad it with different materials. We are able to change that pitch if we need to. We would be able to do something like maybe even stucco, which is what the building is. I mean, the building back there is a monolithic stucco wall. We could do something like that. We could add a little bit of detail there.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and then can I comment on that chain link fence? That chain link fence, it's pretty prevalent around there. There's a lot of buildings in that back section, and this is not, I know it's on the main road, but the road that you're really seeing from is the side there, Archer, and that's not a main road. You will never see this from the main road, Meadow Bay Road, because it isn't back of the building with much of landscape in there.
I would just say, I don't know what the future holds for things there, because Arrow Road could turn out to just turn into a really cool little spot.
You don't see it from Arrow either, because what's between this and Arrow is the metal storage buildings. It's pretty far back. This is the road that connects those two. It really is a back road. Archer.
For now.
It's a connecting road to two main roads is what it is. So I don't foresee, like I said, there's the storage back there. It's pretty well shielded. Storage, metal building storage.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, John. Debbie, do you have questions and comments?
Yes, I just heard something I really liked when Tim said that we could, could look at some different materials. And I think that would be a good idea if we could see what else could be put on there that the manufacturer could provide that wouldn't be overly expensive. I'm really okay with the color. I don't mind it. But if we're going to look at a different material, maybe we look at different colors also. I also think that the roof slanting the other direction would be an improvement. And I'm never in favor of chain link fence anyways. So if there's something that we could do besides chain link, I would really enjoy a different type of fencing material. That's it.
Thank you, Debbie. This structure is just a metal piece sitting there, and it really bothers me. The color I'm also bothered by because it makes it stand out from the lighter color of the stucco building. I agree that the roof should slant in the other direction, but I think we've made enough comments here that I don't think there's a way to make a motion to approve it. Is anyone else in agreement with me?
I am.
John? Judd?
I
agree. I think we need some more work.
Yeah. I think, Tim, what we're looking at is we've got this solid metal structure that even though it's not a main road, it's blocking and it's in front of that, what is kind of a nice building. We got a chain link fence that, even though you can't really see it that well, we don't approve of chain link fences here. And another question I have, Tim, is does what I'm going to call the rack system inside this building, does it let the wood stick out from there, or is it all covered by that building from the 3 sides?
No, it'd be shielded. That's the idea of it, is shielded on 3 walls. So it won't stick it out at all. You won't see the actual lumber.
Chris, would you like to advise our applicant as to what his next steps could be?
Yes, Tim, if you get a denial, if they go to a vote and you get a denial, you're prevented on coming back without substantially changing the project for a full year per the land management ordinance.
Okay.
How do you can
We don't
withdraw?
want to do that. So should we just pull it and come back? When would the next meeting be?
The next meeting, hold on, I'll tell you.
I think it's January, the second Tuesday in January. January 12th.
It is, the next meeting is January 12th, which would make the deadline December 29th. Yes.
December 29th.
Yep. And the following, I don't know if it helps, the following meeting would be January 26th with the deadline of January 12th.
Okay. I mean, we would try to get it in by December 29th.
Okay. So I'm sorry, I don't know that you're on record. I need you to formally say that you're withdrawing the application.
I'm withdrawing the application.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to airport terminal renovation, DRB 0023682020. Chris, would you like to make a presentation?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
I should stop. Does anyone need to take a break? Is everyone okay? Okay. Continue, Chris.
Okay. The existing Hilton Head Airport has had ongoing expansions and improvement for over many years. The current scope of the proposed improvements include expansion of the terminal building to increase passenger circulation and queuing, and to accommodate 3 new passenger aircraft gate positions and new TSA baggage handling facilities. Expansion to the associated vehicle parking lot and improvements to the passenger drop-off loop and ingress-egress lanes. Additionally, impacts to the existing main vehicle parking area will occur from the new terminal roadway curbside that replaces the existing terminal roadway curbside. So what you see in front of you is only a portion of the airport. It's outlined in red. Sort of lower middle of the slide, you can see the airport terminal where my cursor is. And Beach City Road is running diagonally across the middle to the lower left of your screen. Does everybody know where we are? And if you do not, please let me know or make a motion. Seeing none, these are the existing conditions of the site. I'm sorry, let me back up a little bit just so that everybody understands this is a conceptual review. They will be required to come back for final. Existing conditions. This is the demolition plan. This is the proposed layout, paving layout. Landscape plan. So here you can see the existing terminal grade in, and then the expanded terminal here. Elevations of the proposed expansion. Detail elevations of the entrance. Side elevations. I'll be perfectly honest, staff is unclear where this building is located, and I would look for the applicant to let staff know. And then here are illustrations of the building, front of the building. Drop-off area and main entrance from the parking lot. You can see the covered drop-off here. Sort of a bird's eye view of that drop-off area. Sort of a clarified layout, proposed layout of the parking. This area over here is new parking proposed. There's minor changes to the existing parking in this area. Staff recommends conceptual approval as submitted and recommends revisions be made to address staff comments during the final review. This concludes staff's presentation. Kathy, I think you're muted.
Yes, thanks. The dog was whining. Do we have questions from the board to Chris?
Travis.
All right, then is the applicant available? It looks like we might have a list. If we could get the lead person to give us their name, and then everyone else that's online, give us their name as well. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So this is Travis Pence, one of the architects working on the project with the Wilson Group Architects. With me is Brian Wilson. We also have several other members of our team that are on this call, and at the appropriate times, I'll need to yield to them to answer some of the specific questions that are on the comment sheet. Those persons are Josh Tiller with J.K. Tiller, who will handle the landscape questions, and we also have Paul Moore with Ward and Edwards Hearings, can handle some of the issues related to erosion control and stormwater design. And we also have Pat Turney, civil engineer with Talbot Bright and Ellington, if any questions come up for him. We also have a couple of other members on our team that probably will not have any speaking roles. Carl Ellington with Talbot Bright and Ellington, Judy Elder with Talbot Bright and Ellington, and John Rimbold, who's the airport director.
Thank you, Mr. Pence. You have 10 minutes to add to Chris's narrative, and then we'll address you with comments afterwards.
Okay, thank you all for your time today. I just have a question. Are we to go ahead and address the comments that were sent to us for architectural design, landscape design, and natural resource protection at this time, or do we wait?
Why don't you make your presentation now, and then if you've got time left in your 10 minutes, you can address those. Otherwise, we'll ask you during our comment section.
Okay. I think, Chris, I explained the project really well. Due to the growth that's occurring here at the airport with the airfield improvements that have been made, we are expanding this facility. It's a 3-gate facility now, but it's going to be, when it's finished, a right-sized 3-gate facility that's going to serve 3 airlines, new security checkpoint that's post 9/11 design, increasing the size of the building and circulation areas in this era of COVID and hopefully post-COVID. And associated with that are all the parking lot improvements that you saw with expanded roadway and the need for additional parking that we're addressing with this project. We also have an opportunity with the way that we're designing this building to radically and wholesale change the way that the existing building looks. Gone is going to be the two-toned, algae-ridden, exposed CMU, the exposed steel, the teal-colored 1980s era roof. We'll be able to replace all that as part of this project. And also a major focus of ours is to make sure that we're designing this building to not only look like it's in Hilton Head, but that it's immersed in the landscape of the building. The landscape is part of the architecture, both proceeds from the outside and from the inside. The one small building that Chris commented on, that's what's called a triturator building, and it'll be located out at the airfield. It's a facility that the lab carts use to take the waste off the aircraft and put it into the sewer system. It's still being looked at in terms of where it goes exactly, but we wanted to include it in this presentation so you all understood there would be a new building in addition to the renovation part of this project.
If that's what you've got, if you want to address the staff comments that you questioned before, that would be great.
Yes. So I'll handle the 2 architectural comments, and then we'll move on to the landscape comments. The one comment we received under design guide LMO criteria, the question was, our criteria was promotes pedestrian scale and circulation, and the comment was, why narrow the crosswalk on the parking lot side of the drop-off? We will not be limiting the size of that crosswalk. We'll be updating the design so that it goes straight across. It will not be narrowed.
Thank you.
If we can leave this drawing on for just a second. The second comment was the decorative lighting is limited and low wattage and adds to the visual character. And the comment was the lighting plan is required at final. We will certainly comply with that. It should include all exterior lights. We will comply with that. And the comment, consider using light bollards in the parking lot for along pedestrian paths where possible. And we intend to do that. So if you look on the left side of the plan where the new entrance rows is kind of reconfigured, there's a sidewalk a little bit further to the left. Yeah, there's a sidewalk that runs all along that area. We will have pedestrian lit bollards along that sidewalk. It just hasn't made it into the drawings yet. And it continues back around towards the building, following the roadway. It crosses over and then. Right. And then also the sidewalk that's running left to right, adjacent to the parking in front of the terminal building, that'll have bollards along it as well. And the parking lot lighting currently is Palmetto Electric light poles, and they placed those poles. And it's intended at this time to continue with that theme for the new parking lot.
Thank you.
And so with regard to the next comments, I need to defer to Josh Tiller with J.K. Tiller.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Josh Tiller with J.K. Tiller Associates. Chris, could you go to our first landscape sheet? Think about how, okay, that's it. the first comment under natural resource, difficult to read in the demo plan. This plan must be more legible. I think we'll be happy to update the demo plan. And if you notice on the landscape plan, we also show, clearly show the removed trees on our landscape plan. So I think we can take care of that comment. The second comment was no effort has been made to preserve existing trees in the new parking lot on the west side, and that's on this sheet. That early on, when we spoke with staff, we understood that in order to maximize parking and accommodate stormwater, we were going to have to lose some trees. And in an effort to soften that, we've got to come up with some kind of balance between parking and stormwater, and we're obviously going to lose some trees on the site. So to offset that, we did a few things. One, as you come in on that main entrance drive, that buffer between the main entrance drive and the parking lot is heavily landscaped and buffered. And then as you get closer to the building where the drive kind of starts to flare out and get wider, to the east of that curb, there's an area of existing trees in there that we also preserved that helps further buffer the existing parking lot. So we've done a good job of buffering that entrance drive. Additionally, within the new parking lot, we've saved a lot of the existing trees on the northern end of the parking lot where the existing parking is located. There's some large specimen trees that we've worked around. To the south end, we've added, where there was existing parking, we've added a stormwater BMP, little bioswale, and some additional buffer between the parking lot and the building. And then throughout the expanse of the lot, we're, as far as accommodating stormwater, we've got some biobasins within all those, between those parking bays. And we've gone in there and added a lot of bald cypress in there as replacement. The only two significant trees lost in this parking lot, there are two pine trees, one 30-inch, one 34-inch. And I believe it's the 34-inch that's not in very good shape, and we're going to have an arborist report on that one. So there's only one good pine that's coming out, specimen pine that's coming out. The remainder are a lot of water oaks and gums. So we worked with staff on this early on, and we feel that we've come up with a good compromise to offset the removal of a lot of those trees in the parking lot. The third comment dealt with the 3 parking spaces. Chris, if you go to the next sheet, there are 3 new parking spaces close to an existing 54-inch live oak. Like I said earlier, we need as many parking spaces as we can get. Currently, that area doesn't show parking spaces, but in observing the site, we've counted up to 5 cars parked in that area. And what we'd like to do is formalize that to keep cars from parking, additional cars from parking and impacting that root structure. One thing to note is that 54-inch live oak, most of the canopy leans over to the south and east, away from those spaces. But one thing, as a compromise, what we'd be willing to do is remove the single isolated parking space and put in some kind of fence, maybe the split rail fence, to keep people from parking where they currently park now. So that's our, I guess, response to that comment. And then the last comment, specify on the demo and landscape plans that all significant and specimen trees within the limit of work to receive a pre and post construction fertilization and mycorrhizal treatment by master arborist, and we're happy to comply with that comment. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move to discussions and questions from the board, and we're starting with David McAllister.
First of all, I've got to say this is an exciting project for the island and a significant project, and kudos to the design team. I think this is a very thorough and complete conceptual submittal, so we appreciate that on the board. I'll start with just some site comments because in general, I think the architecture looks great. I think it's heading in the right direction. And I'll let some of our architects chime in. But overall, I like where it's headed. I think it's looking great. I think the site looks good as well. While we were talking about that 54-inch tree, I think losing the single parking space is a good compromise, but I would also add that the LMO is going to make you keep, I think it's a 15-foot clearance from the tree. You can't compact the soil or do anything. So, you're going to have to comply with that. So you may just want to proof it if you have a new parking within that 15-foot diameter or radius. You wouldn't be able to put a parking spot there. And that is a significant tree that we would want to protect and preserve. It sounds like I appreciate your explanation for the trying to retain trees in the new parking area. It's my understanding that all the parking is going to be flush and stormwater is going to be sloping into these little bioretention areas. Is that correct? Okay.
Correct.
Okay, so I'm sure that makes it a little more challenging to preserve trees in there when you're cutting grades down. So I understand it, but I will just go ahead and reiterate, any trees you can save is really important. Just looking at your tree demo plan, see a significant amount of trees coming out, so I'll be curious when you come back to the final, how you're going to mitigate for all those removals. So just be looking to make sure that you're in compliance there. I think it's really well landscaped. Don't really have a lot of comments on that. I did have a question about the dry or the bioretention area that's, I guess, planned east of the building. Is that ever designed to retain water, or is it just a dry basin that will fill up in stormwater events? Yep, that area.
Yeah, that might be a question for our civil.
Yeah, Paul Moore can field the question.
Hi, this is Paul Moore with Ward Edwards Engineering. That is intended to be a dry basin. It's just a larger bioretention. Right now, the existing parking lot was designed similar to what we're proposing. Everything is draining to the islands, but there is some draining to the exterior, and there's some exterior ditches that are going to be filled. So we've got to capture those ditches and that runoff from the existing parking lot, and that's kind of the purpose of that larger bioretention basin, is to capture the existing drainage and then convey it through to where it's currently going. But it's intended to be dry, but will occasionally fill up and drain back down.
Okay, and I assume that's probably the case for the one to the west as well.
Yes.
Okay. Overall, I think it looks great. I think it's heading in the right direction. Like I said, the landscape's looking good. We'll be curious to see how you are able to mitigate all those trees that are coming out, but I'm sure you guys can do it. So I think that's all I've got.
Thank you, David. Moving on to Judd.
Thank you. Yes, I think that this is, I'll echo David's sentiment that this is going to be an excellent upgrade. I know I didn't first arrive to Hilton Head from the airport, but I've been there a number of times, and knowing where this is going is exciting. The architecture, I think, is an outstanding upfit. It certainly feels much more of a terminal, at least from the perspective elevations. And obviously it's slow slung at nature is harmonious with what we have now. I'll harp on I appreciate that there'll be some, that Josh mentioned, the ability to put in some additional protections for some of the specimen trees to be retained. Thinking about knowing that there's probably going to need to be some mitigation inches associated with the trees taken out. I'd recommend that the trees, the oaks along that entry road, I know already you're speccing 4-inch caliber trees. Maybe the potential on that entry road, and especially close to the building, maybe that's the opportunity to upsize. That'll help to soften that approach. And really, since most of the traffic and most of the people interacting with the terminal will be on that main drag, I would say, is that live oaks on that main drag. Maybe think about upsizing those if you're needing some additional inches. Finally, I'll say that new lot that you're talking about doing on this sheet here, that outermost boundary edge. I know there's no buffer requirements between properties, but I'd recommend, especially at the end of these parking aisles, I see you've already kind of planted a couple trees or suggested trees there in those gaps. Maybe that there's at least some lower level treatment at the end of the parking areas, just to help kind of mitigate for the users and for the potential adjacent use. I think some of the properties are developed and some of them might not be at this moment. And sorry, I have notes. Well, obviously, wayfinding at airports is really critical. So we'll want to make sure that we coordinate all of our signage with our plantings so that we're not sacrificing one for the other when it comes down to it. And finally, with final, I think knowing that you've got this large terminal area and drop off and you're bringing in a lot of pedestrians, let's make sure to take care of articulating our ground plane when it comes to pavement and markings, so that the ability to change up the ground plane or change up the pavement to really highlight those pedestrian areas and create those safe spaces for pedestrian crossings and all will be important. But otherwise, I think, as David says, it's a great start for conceptual, and I look forward to seeing how things progress with the site and all too. Thank you.
Thank you, Judd. We'll move on to Annette.
Thank you. I agree. I mean, this is the gateway into the island when one arrives by plane, and I think it's a really beautiful looking building. I think the proportions are great. I think you've done a great job of not letting the roof, which on a single story building frequently can feel top heavy. I think by adding all those dormers and different types of dormers, I think and different ridge directions, I think you've done a great job of letting this building not feel top heavy while remaining single story. I think the proportions of the windows help stretch it vertically, again, while keeping it single story. So I think there's a lot of great details that I'm seeing that will really make this a great entry point into the island and very welcoming. So I do really appreciate that. I am seeing the nod to some of our traditional low country details, such as the gooseneck light fixtures. Chris, if you can perhaps go to the rendering, I think I wrote G101, yes, exactly. The bottom right rendering, I think shows that these goosenecks are feeling a little bit pinched. I think goosenecks like to have a little bit of space around them. It reads to me like they are right now being proposed as being sort of V-mounted. Perhaps they could go on a column or just somehow give them a little bit more breathing room. I think what's also nice is the treatment of the ceiling with the tongue and groove. Again, I appreciate also the board and batten, at least that's what I'm reading it as, fiber cement siding. I think all of those are really nice of how it's integrated. While staying on this rendering, initially when I looked at the rendering before I looked at the notes, I guess I immediately assumed that those columns would be a tabby stucco, again, to bring in the vernacular of the low country. I'm seeing those are currently called out as being a concrete with an acrylic coating. Might be something to look at, whether you bring in that tabby stucco on those, again, because it's so prevalent all over the island and really a very strong low country vernacular. And then I have one comment which is completely out of my purview. I am not a traffic engineer, but I have been at plenty busy airports, and this one is going to get busier by the moment. My concern is the 2 lanes to 4, and really more so strongly the 4 lanes back down to 2. Especially when people arrive or are anxious to get out of the airport. I hope that does not turn into an accident zone. I think the bottom 2 lanes are going to be very hard to merge. But again, I am no traffic engineer, but I had to comment on that. That's all I have. Like I said, very nice looking building. Thank you.
Thank you, Annette. We'll move on to John.
I'm surprised to see you guys here. I thought this was already approved with all the work that you've done in the past on it. So, but I guess all your efforts were not in vain, because I would give you the thumbs up right now. Very good job. One thing I'd throw out, I was just came up as everyone else was talking, and with all the COVID stuff that's going on, not that when people land in the airport, I'm sure they're anxious to get to their destination and they're not going to hang out at the airport. But for the people that either are going to pick up a friend or family member, to give them a place to hang out, or your flight's supposed to be at 2 and it gets delayed, and so on and so forth. Is there any type of outdoor, hangout area, so to speak, and maybe that 54-inch oak tree might lend itself to something like that? I don't know if that's anything that was worked into the design.
It is not at this time.
I mean, we can look at, if you look at the parking lot, there's a lot of area that could be used to hang out in, just like you talked about with the 54-inch period.
Yeah, whether it just be some benches. Yeah, I'm not looking to deny the whole all your efforts because of that, but just throwing that out there. If there's opportunities when you're playing around with the landscaping component of it to add some sitting areas here and there might, for what that's worth, be something worth considering. Like Annette had pointed out, and I think this was something that came up with one of your previous submissions, those circular columns or cylindrical columns at the drop-off areas. Kind of seen that being tabby. Obviously nothing that's such a large oyster shell that it's turning out to be a gory thing for people who brush up against it, but just something that kind of ties into that low country vernacular. And my comment on the lighting, not that I have anything against gooseneck lighting, but just since that is a cylindrical in nature, okay, I see that. Well, I'm going to kind of renege on my comment there, because there I see that they're actually attached to the beams. I guess one of the photos there, it seemed that they were mounted to the cylindrical columns, which would be tough. But any thoughts to even just losing any surface mounted lighting and just having a recessed can or something flush in the ceiling so it's not even visible? Or what was the Thoughts on that?
I think we like the look of the gooseneck fixture, but maybe we do an interpretation of it. I get the point that was made earlier about the tightness of it to the ceiling, which is proposed to be a beadboard type ceiling. At nighttime, there's a different impression of the way this canopy looks, which when we get further along, we'll show you guys some additional renderings of that. But we do like to mount the light fixtures to something flat. And we kind of like where they're at, but we can look at improving the look of that fixture.
Right. And in terms of the tabby finish, even though the concrete columns are concrete, we're thinking that they do have a tabby finish to them.
Okay.
As well as the area that's right at the main entrance.
Yeah, we're also investigating the oyster shell and the sidewalk out at the front as well. There's a structural issue that we've had with these columns when we've done cast in place structural columns before. We've never been satisfied with the finish of them. And so that's why we currently have a high performance coating. It looks like kind of like a pebbly type texture on them, but we can investigate some options for that. And when we get our next round of presentation, we'll have something for you on that.
Okay, well, that's good to hear that there'll be some type of texture. Then I'd assume whatever you guys land on for those cylindrical columns, that's the same thing that you'll have at the main entry there, just to kind of have that set off from the main body.
That's correct.
Yeah, very good. I'm excited for you. You guys did a really good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Debbie, we'll move on to you.
Okay. I'm kind of curious, can we go back to the parking lot plan, which I think was C901? There, that one. This will be the current plan, is that right?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am, that's
Okay.
correct.
Maybe this is on here and I just can't see it because my computer screen is so small, but which is the short-term parking, the long-term parking, and the rental parking?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Short-term parking.
Yeah. Which parking is short-term, which parking is long-term, and where are the rental cars going?
All right, so the rental cars, if you're looking at this drawing, the rental cars are where they currently are, because on the right side of the existing parking lot.
Okay.
You see kind of the big divider between the parking area right there? Yeah, so to the right of that is the rental car, and it has its own entrance and exit.
Okay.
And then to the left of that is the long-term lot.
And what is the new lot?
The new lot is, I'm not sure it's completely designed right now. It's overflow, employee parking, long-term parking.
Where's short-term parking?
Short-term parking is in the front part.
The front part on the left side is short-term parking.
Okay. Okay. And then the back of that is the long-term parking. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. And then going back to the front facade. Yeah, that one's fine. I was just curious. I like the dormers. Will those actually be skylights into the building, or are they just faked off?
Yes, they're skylights.
Okay, great. So we'll have a lot of nice light in there. That's very nice. I like that. Those are my only. Go ahead.
The big triangular element at the entrances, that functions the same way.
Okay, yeah. Okay. All right, those are my only questions. Thank you. It looks like we're going to have a really nice airport.
Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. To the client, thanks for addressing with us the staff's comments. That helps a lot. I'm happy that you're not going to be squeezing the sidewalk and that we're going to have the lit ballards. That's going to be nice. I am happy to hear the comments from our two landscape architects. Judd especially agree that they should look into adding, even though they're not required, but buffering the side of the new parking lot and the adjacent properties. I think that's a great idea, just for safety and looks for when you're parking there and you don't have to see the other people and vice versa. I do like the gooseneck lights. I am not opposed to having them have a little more space between the ceiling. And I'm happy also to hear that you might be using tabby, but a little bit smoother than what we sometimes see on rough edges. And also with the oyster shell on the sidewalk, that should be really, really nice for some island character. And I think that's my comments. I'm going to let us go around again for everyone else to make comments or questions should they need be. So we'll start out with David.
Don't have much more to add, but I will say that I totally agree with Judd's comments about the supplemental landscape on to the east of the parking lot. I think that's great, and consider it to whatever neighboring property there is. And I also agree with his comment to upsize the trees along that main entry drive, just the live oaks, I believe he said. That was a good comment as well, and it might help you with meeting your mitigation numbers. But really all I have, again, it's a great looking project, great submittal.
Thank you, David. Judd?
The only thing I'll reinforce is that the ability to change materials at the ground plane for knowing that brick for crosswalks, or at least some even a concrete paver with the oyster shell on it is a great treatment. But just that ability to really help distinguish the ground plane will help out.
Thank you, Judd. Annette?
I don't have any additional comments. I agree with a lot of the comments. I also continue to like the goosenecks and some of those very specific low country vernacular. And I'm happy to hear talk of tabby on the columns and the entry elements and oyster shells in the sidewalks. I think those are really all so integral to the language of the islands. And so I'm very pleased to hear those, because that to me is exactly what you want to see when you come out of that terminal.
Thank you, Annette. John?
Yes, can I see a couple pictures of the one of the front elevation? Who's ever in the master of the slideshow? Yeah, I just noticed here, you could help me with this. When I look at the picture in the middle there, so sure we have like the little gable there in the front that has the trapezoid transom, and then just behind it there is, like, I guess, a hip roof that peaks up higher than the other. So when I follow that off to the left side, I see how that comes down, and it's flanked by the covering, I guess, for the entryway. But on the right side, I guess the covered entryway stops short of where that hip meets, but I guess that's just probably the wrong angle to be looking at this, right? Because if I'm being clear, what you got, why I'm trying to explain this, you see how like the higher hip roof portion that peaks higher than the main roof? Yeah, the one on the top.
Yeah, it might be easier to look at the
side elevation.
Okay. Bird's eye perspective. Keep going. One more. That one on the bottom, that can kind of probably help you understand what's happening there.
Okay, so the part that I'm seeing there that's covered the walkway, that stops short, but obviously set behind it is what I was throwing me off.
Yeah,
okay, that helps with that. And I was curious, can you dig up the picture that shows like a site plan again that includes the parking lot and the main entry? Just... I guess that'll work just the same. There was like I don't know, a clearer picture than that I had in mind. I'm just curious here. So like looking at this, we'll call it the main entry where that is into the building, and then you cross. So you're leaving the airport, you walk out the main entry, you cross over the 4 lanes of traffic, and then if you just continue to walk straight down that whole little pathway, is there a landscape plan where, again, I know it's not going to be a reflecting pool going the whole way, but that seems to be like a nice opportunity for something there. What is it, I'm sorry, that you guys are kind of proposing to do along that? That's not all going to be a concrete walkway, right? That's all going to be landscaped in there?
Yeah, the landscape plan can show that. That's existing. Of course, we're not really doing anything there, but there's landscape in the center and there's a walk on either side. You can see there.
Okay, so you guys aren't touching anything there and cleaning that up at all. That's just going to kind of stay as it is?
Yes.
Yeah, there are existing trees and vegetation there.
Okay. I just don't remember. Usually when I'm there, I'm never paying attention to what's going on there. So I'll have to take a closer look before the next one. Anyway, I love the project though. Thank everyone for all your work.
Thank you, John. Debbie, do you have further comments?
No, I'm good with all of our comments. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm good too. I'm looking forward to this project. I do thank you, Judd, for bringing up the playing ground changes for crosswalks and stuff. That's a good thing to reiterate. Would anyone like to give a motion for approving the conceptual?
I'll make a motion. I'd like to make a motion for approval with conditions of DRB. Sorry, here we go. DRB 002368-2020 with the following conditions. All of staff comments, which includes that the sidewalk going to the parking will not narrow. Mitigation for trees being removed. Oaks along the entry drive to be yet further upside. I believe there was a comment about increased tree protection. Recommendation of a low-level buffer type planting on the property edge at the new parking, despite it not being specifically required by the LMO. Good coordination between wayfinding, meaning signage, and planting coordination. Articulation of the ground plane via paving types to highlight the pedestrian pathways. Reviewing of potentially additional outdoor gathering spaces, benches of that type. The entry and the columns potentially having a tight tabby surface treatment. Clarification of where short, long-term, and rental parking areas are. Review of exactly how the goosenecks are mounted or where they're mounted, giving them potentially a little bit more space. And use of oyster shells in the sidewalk. That concludes my motion for approval with conditions. In case anybody else has any additions, please let me know.
Does anyone want to add to the motion made by Annette?
Staff would like to comment for consideration. Annette, you said the ground plane you wanted to see oyster shell. Do you want to specifically see oyster shell, or is it just that they should consider the ground plane treatment?
On that one, I was really picking up on a comment by the Wilson Group indicating that they planned on using the oyster shell in the sidewalk. If I misunderstood that, I'm happy to amend.
No, we do plan on doing that.
You do plan on?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'm just clarifying because when this comes back for final review, staff will, I mean, that becomes almost a checklist item. Staff will look to see if there's oyster shell somewhere in the sidewalk. I mean, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
If I might add, I think the way I understood it is the sidewalk is the walk that's in front of the terminal building and that wraps around to the new parking lot. And then Judd was talking about ground plane changes that could be brick when you cross the street to get to the parking lot, etc. That's the way I understood it. Anyone?
Same here. To me, those were two separate line items.
Perfect. Does anyone else want to second Annette's motion?
I'll second.
Thank you. Second by Debbie. Teresa, could you call roll?
Certainly, Madam Chair. Ms. Lippert?
Yes.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Ms. Runke?
Yes.
Mr. Molesky?
Yes.
Mr. Carstens?
Yes.
Ms. Foss?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously, 6-0.
Thank you. We will move on now to 85 Capitol Drive, DRB 002373-2020. Start with the staff presentation from Chris.
Thank you, Ms. Chairman. This proposed project will consist of a 5,760 square foot building and parking for Dice Air. The property is a 1.6 acre undeveloped site in the Capitol Business Park. The applicant is proposing to install 27 parking spaces to accommodate fleet vehicle parking. 9 of the spaces are shown to be pervious. The sides and rear of the building will have overhead doors, so paving will be required up to the foundation on both sides of the building. One specimen tree, a 40-inch live oak, is located at the rear of the site. No paving or soil compaction is shown to occur within 15 foot of the trunk of the tree, and low-impact brick pavers will be placed at or above grade under the canopy of the tree as needed to allow traffic circulation at the rear of the site. Stormwater drainage is provided by the Capitol Business Park Master Planned Stormwater Detention System. The site is located in red on the screen. You can see to the left of the red site is Leg of Mutton Road, and to the bottom is Marshland Road. Well, I was going to say you could see William Hilton Parkway, but we're too close in. Does everybody understand where we are? And if not, please let me know or make a motion. Seeing and hearing none. So these are just some, as I said, the site is undeveloped. So these are pictures of that site. This is across the road in Capitol Business Park. Again, just some more illustrations of that. Let me slide back to the site, slide though. It's important to note that Victoria Square is adjacent to the site here. I believe this is Indigo Run coming in here, and Magnolia Place sits right in up here. So while there is a lot of commercial, industrial, light industrial development in this area, you do have some residential coming in pretty close to the site. This is the proposed first floor plan for the building. And the second floor, just for your understanding of how the facade works. The front of the building and the back, you can see the doors that were spoken about in the narrative. And the side elevations. And this is the proposed site plan. The tree, that specimen tree, is located right here, and you can see the pavement, the pavers, pervious paving put right here. Again, you should note that this is a conceptual review, but staff has identified site plan and architectural issues that should be addressed prior to conceptual approval to eliminate any hiccups at final. So at this time, staff is recommending denial. And in depth, they're showing a 7-foot fence that has to be behind the setback, or it can only be 4 foot, and that's of a particular concern on this side. So that 7-foot fence needs to be behind this line right here. I think that can be done and parking be maintained if the fence joins the building here and comes out in a manner like this and over. But it's going to require some adjusting to the proposed site plan, as well as the building, the asphalt. There needs to be some green area between the building and the parking lot here, as well as here. And the building facades, while there has been an attempt to dress them up, they still remain fairly blank. Staff's concern is that they're just concerned that it is a blank wall. The character of these window treatments are not consistent. In other words, these shutters appear to be smaller than the windows that are unshuttered. That should be consistent across the elevation. And staff is suggesting that a pitched roof element be added to the back. There's a flat roof element now, but a pitched roof element be added to the back because the back is going to be visible from Leg and Button. And that concludes staff's comments.
Thank you, Chris. Does the board have any questions of Chris? All right, we'll move on to the applicant. There may be more than one. If you could have a lead introduce themselves, and then also the other people that might be in the meeting. You will have 10 minutes also.
Sure. My name is Keith Martelli with Martelli Architects, and Mitch Dias, the building owner, Bill Fishburne, the contractor, and David Carlick, the engineer, are all on the phone as well, so they may have something to add. Typically, you're just going to maybe just listen in and hear some of the responses.
David Clark is not on, just so you know. Oh.
So the design that we came up with kind of mimics another building that Mr. Dias has. And after looking at the site there and seeing some of the different styles of building, that's kind of why we went with what we did as far as the slightly more modern looking building with just the sloped roof over the front entryway and then like the towers on the side. Because you're kind of using a little bit of what was at the City Electric building and also what you see on the A1 Pools building with the metal rib siding. Because we aren't planning to do a metal building and then skin it. So we're just trying to tie in some of the features that were also surrounding the building there, which is how we came up with the elevations we did. And I mean, I'm in agreement with Chris as far as widening the shutters. We were just trying to figure out which ones to go with because we have different size windows. So the shutters on the front elevation will match what's across the front, where these ones on the side that he was showing on 201 are a little bit wider. So we'll just adjust those to match those windows. That's what we have comment-wise right now. I don't know if anybody else does from the team.
Thank you. We'll start with board discussion and questions from David.
All right. Well, I think overall on the front elevation, I think you've done a pretty good job of introducing some different materials and just bringing some architectural character out of this building. I would say on the side and rear elevation, I think it does need a little bit more work. I'd like to see a little bit more of, I mean, without telling you what to do, I like what you've done with the front. I'd just like to see a little bit more of that carried over on the sides. I mean, the design guideline states that, all four sides of the building should be treated equally. And we'd just like to see some of that continuation on the other three sides. As far as the site plan goes, I do think that you need to provide a little bit of separation between the permeable parking spaces on the east and west facade of the building. How it's laid out here, I could conceivably see a truck backing in, or even a vehicle bumper overhang, and I mean I could see a vehicle hitting your building, how that's designed. So and really we like to see a little bit of planter between hardscape, when it's abutting a building or vertical structure like that. So I think you might need to rework the site plan a little bit to try to accommodate a small plant strip, and give some separation between the parking and the building. I do agree with staff, if you could rework the bike racks to somewhere closer to the entrance, it might be a little more functional and make a little more sense. And it sounds like you got to rework a little bit of the site plan to accommodate that fence and the setback conflict. So in my mind, I think the site plan needs a little bit of work, and I think the building needs to get developed a little bit more as well. Those are my comments.
Thank you, David. We'll move on to Judd.
Similar to what David said, as far as softening the foundation of the building and having that planting area around the building, I'll ask you're parked extra because of the need to store fleet vehicles. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Sometimes that's the tricky thing with these site plans, where when you start over parking the site, and the limitations start to really close in on you, literally. Maybe there might be another opportunity, instead of having to circulate all the way around the building, just circulating on 2 or 3 sides, knowing you got to get to that loading area. I know sometimes that can be very difficult, but you obviously got a great frontage as far as a buffer, and just really being cognizant of that leg of mutton and having that residential across the way. The building wise itself, being a corner lot, it's going to have, especially 2 of its sides, really, critiqued. And so the idea is we just want to make sure that those 3 sides that are the most visible, let alone the loading side, are addressed properly. But I do like the approach, but I'm definitely going to lean on my architecture colleagues when it comes to either suggestions or just the best course of action with that. But again, trying to get that foundation, and again, just re-looking at the circulation, and maybe there's a a way to push and pull a little bit with the building and some of the circulation, depending on how you got to get to that loading area, that could help out and still not hurt your parking numbers.
Is that all, Judd?
Yeah.
Thank you. We'll move on to Annette.
Yes, thank you. I think for me, it's a little bit of a struggle with, I appreciate that you were trying to articulate the building. Yes, thank you, Chris, for going to the front facade. And sort of finding that balance between articulating it and finding a consistency. I think on the one hand, there are some facades that are still rather blank, and then there are other facade pieces that perhaps have a little too much going on. I think there are a few sort of aspects of symmetry that I have no doubt will get worked out between now and final. If I'm looking, for instance, at the entry of how those brackets meet pier-like conditions and symmetry of window sizes, I think, and interior corner conditions, I think those are easy enough to resolve between now and final. Again, I don't want to tell you exactly how to do it by any means, but one example of where I'm talking about perhaps letting the right corner element really take on its own language rather than having a partial of the left. Perhaps the siding just continues and instead you get awnings, bracketed awnings to cover those windows or something like that. I'm just not sure that at the very top element of that corner piece that you necessarily need the board and batten. But again, that's just one example of how to perhaps create a little more consistency. I think it's already been stated, and you seem to agree that consistency of proportions, you know, and it even goes to me as far as perhaps they are all, again, what shape they end up being to me is less of a concern, but maybe they are all, let's say, square punched openings rather than connecting two of them on that right elevation. And then certainly it would help if that Bermuda shutter takes on the same proportions. I guess asking about the flat roof at the back, it seems very high up to actually be effective, because projection to height, I don't know that you're really getting weather coverage. I don't have a architectural problem with it. I just kind of throw out reviewing whether that is the right height. There is a question of how it's supported. So that would be something to look at. And seeing the line of the roof behind the parapet, are there going to be roof-mounted RTUs? Well, I guess that's double.
No, the HVACs are actually going to be, we've got to modify the site plan and add them to the site plan, and then we have a mechanical room inside. So there wouldn't be anything on the roof as far as that. And then as far as the overhang, the intent is it's going to be built, designed with the metal building company to design the extension of that. And we brought that out as high as we did and as long as we did, because once we're pulling up 18-wheelers and things like that, you do need it a little bit higher that the truck can get in and not hit it. And then at that point, with the truck being closer to the building, it would block the rain as they're loading and unloading the truck. So that was part of the reason for the height of it, and also needing head height at the back of the building where we have storage on the second floor.
Okay. Like I said, I don't have an architectural issue with it. I just was questioning on that one. Okay, so no RTU. Sounds like a service yard will be appearing on the site somewhere.
Yes.
And maybe this has been revised, but I'm reading an 8-foot fence with a barbed wire top. I think that's very un-island character type fencing to have barbed wire on top, and clearly the height and location has already been noted as being an issue. So I think the concept of fence type, location height needs to be reviewed. That's all I have.
Thank you, Annette. We'll move on to John.
Yes, I mean, nothing too new to add. I agree with staff and everyone's comments. I think the front elevation looks awesome. I mean, that's very appealing to what you're trying to accomplish there. And I understand what Annette's saying. There's little details here you need to work on here and there. And maybe all I could say is just like looking at that front elevation on the left side there, how you broke up all that height with some of those horizontal elements there. Maybe that's something that you could carry around to the left, right, and rear of the building. I know it's nothing, sexy or exciting, the back or sides of the building, but, we're kind of tasked with, again, treating all four sides is equal. So, I'm sure that your next time around, you'll have all this stuff figured out. I'm confident in that. So thank you.
Thank you, John. Debbie.
Sorry. I agree with staff's comments on the site plan. I think we need to take another look at that, along with some of the additions that were just suggested. I don't really have a big problem with the building. I think it will be fine. I don't like the idea of barbed wire that Annette was just talking about. So other than that, I don't have any other comments.
Thank you, Debbie. You have gotten the benefit of hearing all the comments from the board. I agree with all of staff comments. It appears to me that there are too many things for us to be able to make a motion with. You did get the advice from everyone, and so now you've got a really strong idea of where we had issues with the project and where you could improve. So I'm going to let Chris give you your options.
It looks like you're headed towards a denial on this project. I'm not going to speak for the board, but I think the chairperson is getting that sense right now. So your options are to either let it go to the vote, but if you do get a denial, the project is prevented on coming back to the DRB without substantially changing the application for a full year per the land management ordinance. You do however, have the option to withdraw. At this time, you will lose your application fee and the number, but that preserves your ability to come back whenever possible, or as soon as possible. And the earlier, as we noted in the meeting, the next meeting is the 12th of January with a deadline of the 29th of December. Is that correct, Teresa? Yeah, Teresa's nodding and saying that's correct. And the following meeting would be the 26th of January with a deadline of the 12th of January.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're going to withdraw then.
Okay. Okay, so we're on record, the applicant's on record as to having withdrawn. Do you have any questions?
I do not know.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will move on to board business. Does the board have anything they would like to bring up? All right, we're looking for a staff report. Staff?
Just a report on minor corridors. Scott's Fish Market was approved to add heaters, outdoor heaters to their patio covering. And that's it.
Thank you. With no other business before the board, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.